Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. For this guide, I'll be talking about Ruan Mei's updated kit. I'll be giving you her best relic, light cones, team comp, rotations, pro and cons, and if you should pull for her. Do note that this is all speculations and subjected to changes. Please don't comment down below on any details on her kit till she's officially out. For any changes to her kit, I'll upload a new video or comment down below. Here are her required materials and skill priority. For an overview on her kit, she gives speed, increases break effect, weakness break efficiency, extends weakness break duration, all type penetration and damage boost for all allies. It's ideal that she runs on a dual DPS team comp, and it's preferred that your DPS unit can match the same element as the boss to do weakness break. For her Eidolons breakpoint, she is totally E0 sufficient. For her E1, when her ultimate field is deployed, allies ignores a certain amount of the target's defense. This gives a rough 10% DPS boost for your team, which will scale higher if your units are using Genius of Brilliant Stars or Prisoner Set, which can ignore defense. Her E2 increases allies' attack when they are dealing damage to enemies with weakness break. It's a below 10% damage boost due to it not being a 100% uptime. Her E4 increases her break effect by a certain amount and lasts for a certain amount of turns, which is honestly not needed at all unless you're aiming to build a high-speed Ruan Mei with little effort. Her E6 increases her ulti duration and increases her talent break damage multiplier, which is honestly not needed at all. For her best price to performance ratio, honestly none at all due to her kit adjustment, which is a free E1 on Ruan Mei. But if you must, it's either her E1 or signature LC if you don't have good options, and her E2 at max. How to build Ruan Mei. For the body you want any main stats, but preferably defensive stats, as sub-stat is more important for Ruan Mei. For the boots you want speed only. Sub-stat priority, you only want to hit exactly 180% break effect, which is a must. After that, focus on speed till 143, 147 or 161. You don't want any other stats, but some effect res would be nice. If you can't hit any of the speed breakpoints, you can just have Ruan Mei go before your DPS unit or let her stay at 134 speed and it's totally fine. High-speed Ruan Mei would benefit by getting more skill points and faster ulti uptime, especially from her E1. For E4 Ruan Mei, you may go for 172 plus speed instead and 80% break effect, and lastly effect res. Onto her Relic Set. It's very straightforward. She has two best in slot which are pretty much equal. With 4-piece messenger you're able to hit high-speed Ruan Mei, and your team may go 2 turns in one cycle, especially with Ruan Mei giving speed to your allies. But it's slightly harder to hit Ruan Mei's max buff threshold. 4-piece Thief is also now her best in slot due to the 32% break effect, but Ruan Mei may not be able to easily hit 161 speed due to the loss of speed bonus. Both of these two Relic Set pieces need either more speed or more break effect. Overall, it all comes down to your luck for the sub-stats and your preferred playstyle, and whichever is more universal to farm for your account, but I recommend players to aim for the 180% break effect over the speed bonus, as Ruan Mei main priority is providing the max damage boost for your dual DPS. And now for the Planar Ornament main stat. For the rope you want break effect only. Unless you have sufficient break effect and have energy regen light cones, then it may be possible for you to opt for energy regen rope for a 3-turn ulti uptime. For the orb, it doesn't really matter, you can go for with any main stats as long as the relic piece has a ton of break effect or speed from the substats, though it's preferred to go with defensive main stats. But substat has a way higher priority. For her Planar Ornament set, Penacony or Vonwak would be useless now, as it doesn't help to hit Ruan Mei ulti uptime in 3 turns. Unless you have memories of the past light cone, I will explain later. It's better to opt for Fleet of Ageless or Broken Keel for some extra damage boost on your DPS units. You may also opt for Kingdom of Banditry for the extra 36% break effect, which is honestly not that bad, where you don't have to care about break effect substats anymore. Especially if you're running with 4-piece Thief and break effect main stat, as you will have more than enough break effect, which will hit slightly over the cap for Ruan Mei's max buff. This set is more for those who want to slap on 4-piece messenger for 161 speed Ruan Mei, or if they don't want to invest into Ruan Mei's relics by using the self-modeling resin. Overall, players should just slap on whichever is easier for them to get the highest speed and break effect breakpoints. Now for Ruan Mei's light cones, I'll start from the worst to best. At last place we have Carve the Moon, Chorus and Planetary Rendezvous. These Lycone synergies with Ruan Mei really well and will work better with a dual DPS team comp. Only use Planetary Rendezvous if you're running her with Ice DPS units. At third place is Ruan Mei Signature Lycone. I speculate that it will instantly regenerate X energy for the wearer at the start of each wave. Increases damage dealt for all allies by X% after the wearer uses a skill, increasing all type penetration for all speed boosted allies by X% and lasts for X turns. The damage boost will be the highest if the buff is active. But with the changes made to Ruan Mei, you only want to use her skill once every 2 turns, which is not a good thing with this Lycone. Unless you're running a Jingliu Ice Mono team comp with Silverwolf or Blade, basically DPS units which are almost skill point neutral, then her signature LC will perform the best if you're skill spamming. Other than this Lycone being a team-wide buff, there's not much benefit. Also, I'm not too sure about the multipliers on the all-type penetration, as I think it may be a typo on the numbers. So I won't be calculating it, but just from the damage boost it's a 8% DPS boost roughly. At second place we have both Bronya's signature LC and Memories of the Past, where you want to run Energy Regen Rope instead for a 3-turn ulti uptime, which works best with her E1. At S1 Memories of the Past it's still preferred to run Break Effect main stat and drop on the 3-turn ulti uptime and focus more on high-speed Ruan Mei. Starting from S2 Memories of the Past, you may run both 5% Energy Regen set bonus with Energy Regeneration Rope, but you still need good substats to pull off 180% Break Effect without the Break Effect main stat. With S4 Memories of the Past, you don't have to run the 5% Energy Regen set piece anymore, which will put this Lycone at first place since you're able to focus more on high-speed Ruan Mei. Unfortunately, with Bronya's Lycone at S1 you need to get hit twice every 3 turns even with Energy Regen Rope and 5% Energy Regen set bonus, where it's better for players to stick with Break Effect main stat. But it's still pretty good even without the 3-turn ulti uptime, as with Ruan Mei at E0 being skill point positive now and with the extra skill points from this Lycone, your dual DPS team comp may never have to worry about skill points anymore, where she sorts of become a future budget 5-star Quantum Harmony unit and more suited for dual DPS team comps. At first place it's still Dance Dance Dance. It enables your team to go 2 turns in 1 cycle instantly with the speed boost from her talent, even with the 4-turn ulti uptime. Though one issue with this Lycone is that if your units aren't at 134 speed or above, this Lycone will perform the worst. For her team comp and rotations I won't be going too much into it, but it's preferred to run her with both dual DPS team comp and have your units at 134 speed or higher. If not, she scales off where a 4-star Harmony unit may perform better. Her best standard DPS team comp scenario now would be a Ice Mono team comp with Jingliu, Ruan Mei, Silverwolf and Fuxuan. She also works great with high break units like both Jingyuan's Lightning Lord or Su Sheng's ulti and dot units. Though Ruan Mei may have some possibility of being replaced for a dot team when a future Nihility dot plus defense shard unit is out. For Ruan Mei pros and cons. Pros: new archetype. She's double S tier. She's easy to build. She's skill point positive. It's not a must to have weakness break anymore due to the changes on her kit. She's by far the best buffer for a dual DPS team comp due to her team-wide buff even without weakness breaks. She's also skill point positive, where it's hard for her to get outscaled in a dual DPS team comp. She enables you to 0-cycle clear MOC due to her high weakness break efficiency. She works great with high-speed DPS unit which have 134 speed PR higher, which allows them to take even more turns. Cons: may still get outscaled in future. She's not needed for a single DPS team comp, as a 4-star support would suffice and Bronya would outscale her hugely. Mono team comps with Silverwolf are more consistent, versatile, future-proof and have way more options for future units. They also won't lose out on damage compared to dual DPS team comps without fast DPS units which can make use of her speed buff. She falls off slightly, highly restrictive unit, and may not be free-to-play friendly for some players as you have to build your units around her. Overall, I would say that she's a unit with high risks and high rewards. On a summary, if you should pull for Ruan Mei, if you have Bronya, no. Even if you don't have Bronya, players will eventually get her with 300 standard pulls, as she's the best standard 5-star unit in the game. If you don't have Silverwolf, she takes a higher priority over Ruan Mei for sure, as a dual DPS team comp may not perform better than a mono team comp due to consistency, and it's way easier for F2P players to pull for the units they truly like. If you like the dual team comp playstyle or a whale which has a ton of limited 5-star units, who likes to keep changing up your roster, then Ruan Mei will be the best for you. In short, if you like her design, you should pull for her, but do note that she's a very restrictive unit if you want to get her max potential. And that's it for this guide.